Okay, colleagues, let us start. Good afternoon, distinguished delegates and participants. I'm Helen Dabu, the Secretary General of the Asia South Pacific Association for Basic and Adult Education, or ASBE. This is the regional civil society network in the Asia Pacific region, established since 1964, advancing the right to education and transformative adult learning and education. Colleagues, if we can just focus. I have the pleasure to moderate this plenary session, which will cover a crucial and integral part of the right to education, and that is literacy. Literacy is an integral part of education and the foundation of lifelong learning. It is also a specific target for implementation in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development as SDG Target 4.7. And yet, more than 773 million youth and adults worldwide, around 2/3 of whom are women, still lack basic literacy and numeracy skills. Despite the existence of an overall agreement on the importance of literacy, as well as the magnitude of the literacy challenge, the financing of youth and adult literacy has consistently remained low, and the policy attention continued to be insufficient. This session will reflect on the progress in youth and adult literacy and on the persistent challenges in order for us to identify areas for action in the next decade to promote youth and adult literacy for humanity and the planet. In particular, colleagues, this panel will address the following key aspects. 1, implementing an expanded notion of literacy. 2nd, improving literacy policy and governance. 3rd, addressing literacy financing challenges. And last but certainly not the least, a very important area, strengthening research, evidence, and data on literacy. And to help us cover these strategic areas to advance youth and adult literacy, we have a distinguished set of speakers from the various regions joining us both here on site and online. In particular, I have here on site the Honorable Minister Wendkouni Joël Lionel Bilgo, the Honorable Minister of National Education, Literacy, and Promotion of National Languages from Burkina Faso. Now, joining us all the way from Canada, but online, we have the Honorable Deputy Minister Donna Johnson, the Deputy Minister of Education of Saskatchewan of Canada, in Canada, and she is also the chair of the Advisory Committee of Deputy Ministers of Education of Canada. Also joining us online is Mr. Mohamed Yehia Nasef. He is the head of the General Authority for Adult Education from Egypt. Now, on site, we also have the Honorable Joint Secretary Deepak Sharma. He is the Joint Secretary of Ministry of Education, Science, and Technology of Nepal. And last among our speakers and joining us online is Ms. Silvia Montoya, the Director of UNESCO Institute for Statistics. And of course, before I proceed with the round of questions with our speakers, I would also like to acknowledge the Honorable Vice President of this conference, who is also chairing this panel, Madam Lionel Tanangada from Solomon Islands. She is a fellow traveler from our Asia-Pacific region. Colleagues, for this session, we will have 3 rounds of questions to be propounded to our speakers based on the key aspects of literacy which I have just described. And for each question propounded to our speakers, they will be given not more than 5 minutes each, and it is my hope that we can keep it to time to all our speakers. I have been given a very tall order and very strict order to keep it to time, so 1 minute before your time is up, I'll be making all those signals that your time is up, okay? So let's start with the first round of questions. The notion of literacy has been evolving along with the social, economic, and technological changes and development. In the UNESCO's recommendation on adult learning and education in 2016, the member states agreed to the definition of literacy and recommended implementing the expanded notion of literacy as part of adult learning and education. In this context, establishing comprehensive literacy policies and implementing this through effective governance is critical for improving literacy situations in the member states. For this first question, I would like to bring in our Honorable Deputy Minister of Education, Donna Johnson from Canada, to tell us how has Canada expanded the notion of literacy, how the policies have been formulated, and how they have been implemented in practice. Honorable Deputy Minister from Canada, Donna Johnson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good day, everybody. In Canada, responsibility for education at all levels, including the adult learning and education pillar, is vested in our provinces and territories. The culture of adult learning and education aims to nurture the conditions and the shared responsibility among learners, their families, educators, employers and employees, communities, and government for active, healthy, and informed participation in society, both individually and collectively. This culture is reflected in an expanded notion of literacy across provinces and territories. This is reflected in a wide range of policy and legislative documents across provinces and territories in Canada. For example, the province of Quebec was a leader in expanding the notion of literacy with its adoption in 2002 of the government policy on adult education and continuing education and training, which was in line with the declaration of the 5th CONFINTEA as it promotes education as a lifelong process. The policy is based on 4 main orientations. First, provide basic education to adults. Second, continually maintain and upgrade their skills. Third, acknowledge prior learning and competencies through official recognition. And fourth, remove obstacles to accessibility and retention. More recently, in 2019, Newfoundland and Labrador adopted its Adult Literacy Action Plan and likewise expanded the notion of literacy. This expanded notion of literacy has been embedded in broader competency frameworks pertaining to the range of essential skills identified as the keys to participating and thriving in the pursuit of adult learning and education, employment, and life overall. A number of provinces and territories in Canada have developed their own essential skills frameworks. For instance, in Manitoba, adult literacy instruction is based on the Manitoba Stages framework, which is designed to support instruction for adults with diverse goals, including gaining or improving employment, accessing education or training opportunities, and addressing personal literacy needs that support individuals to engage fully in society. This framework is used in Manitoba as a guide to assess literacy skills, customize instruction, and measure learning progress. In my province of Saskatchewan, we will develop a new learner competency assessment and training program using the updated National Skills for Success Essential Skills Framework. A new learner competency assessment and training program will provide underrepresented groups of adult learners with enhanced skill assessment for planning educational goals and training for improved employability skills. And finally, at the federal level in Canada, the Ministry of Employment and Social Development Canada has likewise employed a framework for the development, improvement, and measurement of foundational and transferable skills for the current and future labor market, called the Essential Skills Framework. It has recently transitioned to a new Skills for Success model, a revised set of 9 skills. And notably, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick have sought to align their competency frameworks for literacy, numeracy, and other foundational skills with the conceptualization and tool promoted by Employment and Social Development Canada. And I'll leave my remarks there. Thank you.
Excellent points, Honorable Deputy Minister Donna Johnson. You actually saved us some time. You only spoke for 3.5 minutes. That's excellent, but we will call you back again for the next set of questions. I now would like to call on the speaker from Nepal, the Joint Secretary. How is the literacy policy and provision governed and managed in Nepal?
Yeah, thank you, Helen, and respected chair and distinguished delegates. I think my response on these questions will have two sides. So one, what we did till now, and another, how we would like to go for at least 2030. Regarding the formulation and management of the implementation of public policy, we must consider two fundamental factors. First, geographical as well as socio-cultural diversities are the main characteristic of Nepal. It is multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-religious, and multicultural state. Therefore, inclusiveness is in the core value of the literacy policy. Second, Nepal has moved from unitary system to federal system in 2015, and there are 7 provinces and 753 local level. That's the local government, 3 tiers of the government. And local elected body not only enjoy the executive powers, it also enjoys the legislative and semi-judicial powers simultaneously. Because the Constitution of Nepal has listed basic and secondary education that includes the literacy in Schedule 8. That means it is the absolute power of the local government, with the notion that education as a whole is a concurrent power of the federal, province, and local level. So Nepal introduced non-formal education policy in 2006. As per this policy, literacy and non-formal education expanded through the various programs and modalities by targeting the different age and levels of learners. Development and distribution of curricula and learning materials gradually decentralized and localized. And literacy is considered as the rights of the citizen as well as the strong means of the poverty reduction of the country. And National Literacy Campaign is considered as the main instrument to eradicate the illiteracy under the leadership of the local government, community learning centers, CLCs, public schools, religious or traditional learning centers such as Madrasa, Gumba, and Gurukul are also mobilized in the literacy campaign. The federal government primarily responsible for the national policy, coordination, quality assurance, and setting standards and measures in order to ensure that local government are empowered to deliver education service as an efficient and effective manners. And the local level are responsible for the frontline delivery of the public education service. They are also responsible for ensuring learning environment, such as access to appropriate technology and necessary infrastructures, particularly focusing on the needs of the girls, women, vulnerable youth, and other marginalized groups. It is also emphasizing empowerment and partnership with the private sector, civil society organizations, and NGOs, consolidating and expanding literacy and lifelong learning programs. Nepal introduced new comprehensive national education policy in 2019. One of the core objectives of this policy is to make Nepal fully literate country and develop a culture of lifelong learning through the non-formal, alternative, traditional, and open education. For Education 2030, our country vision is inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning for all to develop educated, civilized, healthy, and capable human resources able to contribute to the realization of prosperous Nepal and happy Nepali. So finally, that I would like to say that currently we are working for the legal and institutional arrangement to establish the system of national qualification framework to ensure equivalency, mobility, and permeability among formal, non-formal, and informal education. It is because it is considered that the lifelong learning also is to complement and supplement formal education through broad and flexible non-formal adult learning pathways. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Joint Secretary. Colleagues, we've been doing well with our speakers. They're not fully using their 5 minutes, and that's saving us a good time. Thank you so much. I now have the pleasure to call on our another online speaker from Egypt, the Honorable Head of the General Authority for Adult Education from Egypt, Mr. Mohamed, Yehia, Nasef, the floor is yours. And colleagues, let's use our headset for this.
السلام عليكم السيدة رئيسة الجلسة، الأخوة المتحدثين معي في هذه الجلسة، السادة الحضور. شكر الجزيل والعميق للأستاذ الدكتور طارق شوقي وزير التربية والتعليم في مصر أن منحني شرف التحدث أمام هذا المؤتمر الدولي الهام. شكر الجزيل إلى المملكة المغربية الهاشمية قيادة وشعبا على استضافة المؤتمر على أرضها المباركة. واسمحوا لي أن أتحدث اللغة العربية فهي اللغة الأم. أما عن جهود مصر الحقيقة في مجال رسم السياسات والبرامج الخاصة بتعليم الكبار فهي تجربة سرية بها نظرة استشرافية للمستقبل. فالعالم لم ينتظرنا حتى ننتهي من مهارات القراءة والكتاب، لذا اعتمدت مصر المهارات الرقمية والجدارات الرقمية لدى الدارسين والمتعلمين كمدخل يتمشى مع المتغيرات المجتمعية والاتجاهات العالمية. وقد حرصت مصر في مجال السياسات على وضع استراتيجية امتدت من 2014 حتى 2030 تقوم على 3 محاور. المحور الأول هو سد منابع الأمية من خلال قيام الوزارة بعمل مدارس افتراضية على الإنترنت وعلى موقعها، هدفها دمج عملية التعليم والتعلم لتوفير الوقت والجهد والتكاليف وجعل عملية تعلم الكبار والصغار عملية شيقة وتتسم بالمتعة. أيضا المحور الثاني وهو عمل مجموعة من البرامج بالتعاون مع الجهات الشريكة في القطاع الخاص والمؤسسات الأهلية التي لا تهدف إلى الربح، بهدف تعليم الدارسين الكبار المهارات التكنولوجية الحديثة إلى جانب المهارات الحياتية مثل المهارات المهنية والمهارات الحرفية لخلق فرص عمل حقيقية لهم. الجهود الحكومية الحقيقة مهما أوتيت من قوة لا يمكن أن تصفق منفردة. أيضا المحور الثالث في الاستراتيجية وهو ما بعد محو الأمية، وأكدنا الحقيقة على فكرة التعلم مدى الحياة وتشجيع الدارسين على مواصلة تعليمهم. أيضا في مجال السياسات التوجه نحو الإتاحة من خلال تبني استراتيجيات تجذب الدارسين الكبار وصولا إلى تحقيق الجودة من خلال التعاون مع اليونسكو في إعداد وثيقة معايير لمنظومة تعليم الكبار تشمل أبعاد المنظومة كلها: المعلم والمتعلم والمنهج وبيئة التعلم. أما في مجال البرامج فقد تم ترجمة هذه السياسات إلى برامج عملية إجرائية قابلة للتطبيق. قامت الهيئة بإعداد اسطوانة مدمجة لتعليم الأميين تحت عنوان نتعلم سويا بالشراكة مع بعض الشركات الدولية ووزارة الاتصالات المصرية وهيئة تعليم الكبار. 2. فتحت جائحة كورونا الباب على مصراعيه إلى ضرورة التحول الحتمي والسريع نحو التكنولوجيا في ظل التباعد الاجتماعي الذي فرضته الجائحة. لذا قامت الهيئة بإنشاء وحدة للتطوير التكنولوجي لتقديم الدروس التفاعلية المصورة عبر الفيديوهات التي يتم بثها عبر مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي. واستخدم ذلك في تدريب المعلمين والمعلمات أيضا على الاتجاهات العالمية الحديثة في هذا المجال. أيضا تم إنشاء قناة لتعليم الكبار تبث عبر اليوتيوب، وقد حققت هذه القناة استجابات طيبة وتعاون واضح وتام بين أفراد الأسرة المتعلمين وغير المتعلمين، مما يمكن أن نطلق عليها بالتعلم بين الأجيال. أيضا استثمرت التجربة المصرية شغف الطلاب في الجامعة وإلمامهم بالمهارات الرقمية الحديثة، حيث قامت الهيئة الخاصة بتعليم الكبار بتوقيع بروتوكولات تعاون بين الجامعات بهدف إكساب الطلاب مساعدة طلاب الجامعة وانخراطهم في عملية محو الأمية. لذا هذه التجربة قد مكنت مصر من الفوز بجائزة اليونسكو كونفوشيوس 21 في مجال محو الأمية وتعليم الكبار لما لها من تركيز مهم على الأماكن المهمشة والنجوع والكفور. في مجال الحقيقة البرامج أيضا تم تقليل الفجوة الرقمية بين الجنسين لصالح المرأة والفتاة. أيضا تم إعداد رقمنة منهج اسمه المرأة والحياة بالتعاون مع شركة مايكروسوفت العالمية لتحويل هذا المنهج الهام والمهم إلى منهج رقمي يمكن للدارسين الكبار التعلم منه. أيضا إرساء مجموعة من القواعد الرقمية التي استخدمت في عمليات الإشراف والمتابعة وتبني مهارات الرقمنة إلى جانب تبني المهارات الخضراء بالتركيز للمحافظة على البيئة وخفض انبعاثات ثاني أكسيد الكربون. فلم تعد عملية تعلم الدارسين الكبار لمهارات القراءة والكتابة هي العامل الرئيسي، بل هناك مهارات أخرى حاولت التجربة المصرية غرسها. أنا بشكركم على حسن الاستماع وأتمنى من الله التوفيق وفي انتظار السؤال الثاني إن شاء الله.
Thank you so much to our honorable speaker from Egypt. He's right on time. Colleagues, for this first round of questions, the speakers have demonstrated to us how governments should lead the responsibility in meeting the right to youth and adult literacy and in providing leadership, policy and competency frameworks, and enabling environments to advance youth and adult literacy. In particular, they also highlighted the need to ensure cooperation across the relevant ministries and the links to all relevant development programs. They have strongly emphasized the need for systemic collaboration with various actors, and thank you so much for the speakers for also mentioning my constituency, the civil society constituency, in bringing them in this collaboration, institutional collaborations. They also emphasize the need to ensure that the learning and the programs should be relevant to the lives of the learners. No? They, particularly when they made the point from our speaker from Nepal, the need to localize and decentralize the learning and decision-making over literacy curriculum, methods, and materials. No? They emphasize multicultural, multilingual, and the need for competency-based skills for life work and sustainable development, and also the focus on marginalized and vulnerable groups. I will now go to the next round of questions around the importance of education financing for youth and adult literacy. And for this, colleagues, the demands for improving literacy skills of the adult population have been changing with the changes in society and the economy. It is also acknowledged more explicitly that students and learners in many countries are not achieving minimum literacy levels despite going to school. In this context, sustainable and multi-sectoral financial planning and implementation of youth and adult literacy are critical to expanding literacy learning opportunities throughout life, improving the quality of provision, and fostering innovation in literacy. I now would like to invite our on-site speaker from Burkina Faso, the Honorable Minister Wendkouni Bilgo, to describe to us how has Burkina Faso been addressing the financing of literacy.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, la question du financement pour l'alphabétisation est une question assez cruciale et chrysogène, que ce soit au Burkina ou encore dans d'autres pays africains, tant l'éducation, en fait, occupe une place, non pas de choix, mais une place de second rang dans notre système budgétaire au niveau national. Alors que c'est une nécessité primordiale de construire des êtres humains citoyennement responsables, capables donc de conduire la destinée de nos sociétés. Tant qu'on ne va pas placer l'éducation, l'alphabétisation, au cœur même d'une politique globale, interne et acceptable par tous, compris par tous comme une nécessité, on aura toujours des difficultés. On a souvent au Burkina Faso, mais dans bon nombre de pays africains, reposé la stratégie de financement sur la captation des financements externes, notamment au niveau des partenaires techniques et financiers, sans exploiter ou explorer de façon intégrale notre capacité à mobiliser de façon volontaire et endogène certaines ressources. C'est ce que je fais comme pari depuis que je suis au ministère de l'Éducation nationale, c'est-à-dire de faire comprendre aux bénéficiaires de l'alphabétisation qu'il y a une nécessité pour eux de prendre part de façon volontaire et de participer à la mobilisation donc, de ces ressources-là. Il y a également la question donc, des opérateurs économiques en local qui sont bénéficiaires du capital ou de la ressource humaine qui est mise à leur disposition par ces politiques d'alphabétisation. Donc nous réfléchissons à faire participer l'écosystème économique local burkinabé au financement donc, de l'alphabétisation en interne. Il y a aussi un point, c'est le gratuit. On a le gratuit comme tout ce qui est gratuit dans nos mentalités au Burkina Faso ressemble à du bas de gamme. Mais lorsqu'on crée, qu'on suscite une émulsion populaire, une adhésion populaire sur la nécessité et l'importance de mettre en place des actions, parfois certaines actions peuvent sortir du cadre financier et rentrer dans le domaine du bénévolat. C'est par exemple la mise en place de l'enfant éducateur. Ça veut dire qu'on a des familles où l'enfant est allé à l'école, il a un certain niveau et qui peut transmettre le savoir, l'alphabétisation à son père ou à sa mère qui n'a pas eu la chance donc d'aller à ces écoles-là. La question de l'enfant éducateur, c'est de responsabiliser certains acteurs qui ont le minimum et le b.a.-ba, de partager leurs connaissances à titre gracieux auprès de leurs propres parents dans le noyau familial ou dans le noyau de leur biotope, leur environnement de vie. Donc voilà quelques pistes. D'abord, la captation des financements à l'international vient vraiment en dernier plan. Nous voulons faire ce pari-là et ce rêve-là, en tout cas de mobiliser de façon populaire et de façon sociétale sur cette question donc d'autoprise en charge par rapport à l'alphabétisation. Et après, partout là où on ne peut pas aller sur du gracieux, là on va imaginer donc des mécanismes d'aide ou de demande de financement sur les plateformes à l'externe. Nous avons essayé de faire une sensibilisation sur le fait que l'éducation ne s'achète pas et donc ne se vend pas. Le savoir se transmet. Et à partir de ce moment-là, il s'agit de responsabiliser les acteurs de la société civile afin qu'elles puissent prendre aussi à bras le corps cette thématique donc, de la vulgarisation de l'apprentissage et du savoir. Et donc, il y a beaucoup d'acteurs de la société civile qui accompagnent le ministère de l'Éducation nationale volontairement et bénévolement dans la mise en place de cadres d'apprentissage et qui ne nécessitent aucune mise en valeur en termes financiers, ce qui nous fait gagner en points. Donc nous, on fait le pari que lorsque toute la société est volontaire et convaincue de la nécessité d'une démarche de partage du savoir éducationnel, on arrive à réduire en tout cas les besoins en finance et ou en tout cas les orienter vers d'autres domaines. Là où on ne peut pas faire de l'économie, c'est dans la production du matériel didactique. Là, il va falloir investir. Mais on a un rôle aussi de secourisme qui est de transcrire au niveau des langues nationales l'ensemble des langues sans quoi il y a des langues qui disparaissent. Nous, on a une soixantaine de langues et on a un devoir justement de transcrire ces langues-là et de les conserver afin de pouvoir les transmettre de génération en génération. Ensuite, au niveau du Burkina, avec cette nécessité de comprendre que l'éducation est une valeur sûre pour un monde en paix, nous avons rajouté la valeur de la citoyenneté. Vous savez, le Burkina Faso traverse une crise pénible qui est des attaques terroristes un peu partout. Et nous, on dit que la guerre peut naître par les hommes, mais la guerre aussi finit par les hommes. Ou la valeur de l'éducation au sein de la société, faire prendre conscience qu'à travers donc, ce système éducatif, nous pouvons rééduquer ou en tout cas transformer les postures afin de ramener la paix au Burkina Faso et partout ailleurs. Et donc, la notion du financement, c'est important, mais nous, on pense qu'il va falloir que les États travaillent à mobiliser les ressources internes par la pédagogie, par la communication et par la prise en compte d'une nécessité d'être d'abord acteur de premier plan et ensuite, partout là où on ne peut pas trouver les ressources internes, on va ensuite mettre des mécanismes en place pour chercher les ressources externes. Merci beaucoup.
Excellent points from the Honorable Minister from Burkina Faso. Thank you so much. I now would like to call back our Honorable Joint Secretary from Nepal to tell us how has Nepal ensured that there is sustainable and equitable financing of literacy.
Thank you. Of course, it is. I think it is very, very important question, and we have discussed several times in the national and international forums, from the Dakar to Incheon, and then CONFINTEA, this six, and also, and involving in the planning and budget process. Sometimes I feel it is difficult to answer when I consider the scale of the economy of the nations and trend of the economic growth rate and share of the education budget as a whole. So if we consider all these elements, and sometimes it is difficult to answer these questions. Anyways, let me highlight that how Nepal is working for this. In your previous question, I said that literacy and basic education is the mandate of the local government. That is very important. And province and federal government has the supportive role, not the decisive role. This is because that is the absolute power of the local government, and central and federal government has the supportive role. And to ensure that provincial and local government receive a fair share of public financial resources, the National Natural Resources and Fiscal Commission has been established. This is the constitutional body. This determines the basis and modality of the distribution of resources between federal and lower level government. The Intergovernmental Fiscal Transfer Management Act 2017, that Parliament passed that act, that assigned the revenue function at provincial and local government level to fund their new functional responsibilities. That education literacy comes under the new functional responsibility of the local government. And National Education Policy 2019 is to ensure investment in education on the basis of national priority, as well as sufficiency, equitability, and best value for money to fulfill the constitutional and legal obligation of right to education. And basic education and literacy is the free and compulsory. That is the fundamental rights. And federal, province, and local level, they act on the principle of coexistence, coordination, and mutual cooperation. That means there is a sharing of the cost and financing in the literacy and other programs. And to ensure sustainable and equitable financing of literacy, Education 2030, Nepal National Framework articulates that literacy program is not a separate program. It envisions the programs to be addressed through the periodic plan of the country, midterm expenditure framework, MTF, and annual strategic implementation plan and budget. Financing is a shared responsibility of the federal, province, and local level government. The federal government provides block grants, conditional grants, physical equalization grants, matching and special grants annually through the budget announcement. That is the, sometimes that if the illiteracy is high and government wants to go to the focus program, that specialized grants they provide. And local education group, we have the very strong local education groups. That local education groups comprises the stakeholders, local stakeholders, private sectors, NGOs, civil society organizations, and development partners as well. They jointly review the government's proposed program and budget annually before submitting to the parliament, and they source the best option to fulfill the funding gaps. In this way, we are trying to our best for the sustainable and equitable financing in literacy and lifelong learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Joint Secretary from Nepal. Excellent points again. I'd like to bring back our speaker, honorable speaker from Egypt, to describe to us what innovative literacy financing mechanisms or strategies have been implemented in Egypt. Let's bring him online.
الحقيقة يعني تبقى قضية التمويل هي الشغل الشاغل للعديد من الدول النامية ومنها مصر طبعا. الحقيقة مصر لجأت إلى تبني مجموعة من الحلول الإبداعية والابتكارية لسد الفجوة في عملية التمويل. التعليم هو السلاح المنقذ من الفقر والجهل والمرض، لذا يستحق هذا الملف الكثير والكثير من تضافر الجهود بين القطاع الحكومي والقطاع الخاص والمنظمات التي لا تهدف إلى الربح. إذا حرصت الحكومة المصرية حتى أثناء جائحة الكورونا ألا تتوقف أنشطة هيئة تعليم الكبار في مصر، بل زودتنا بدعم إضافي وتموين إضافي وشراكة حقيقية مع منظمات المجتمع المدني. أيضاً قامت الحكومة المصرية بعمل مجموعة من الخطوات للتغلب على فجوة التمويل. نمرة 1، فتح الباب أمام مؤسسات المجتمع المدني ورجال الأعمال والقطاع الخاص من باب الواجب الوطني لحمل هذا الملف المهم وهو ملف تعليم الكبار. أيضا تبنت الحكومة المصرية سياسة تحديد الأولويات على أن نبدأ بالمهم ثم الأقل أهمية لترشيد النفقات والمحافظة على المال العام. أيضا لدينا في الهيئة خارطة طريق، لكل جنيه يصرف فيها يرسم له خارطة طريق حتى يسير في طريقه الصحيح للاستفادة منه على أكبر قدر ممكن. أيضا نعمل سنويا مع الحكومة على زيادة الميزانية الخاصة بتعليم الكبار. أيضا تم إنشاء صندوق خاص لدعم المشروعات التعليمية في مصر وبخاصة أثناء الأزمات والطوارئ، يسهم هذا المفهوم في سد الفجوات التمويلية. أيضا حرصت الحكومة المصرية على تعديل التشريعات التي تحول دون القيام بالدور الحقيقي لمؤسسات المجتمع المدني في عملية التمويل وتقديم التبرعات والمنح المادية والعينية التي تزيد من انخراط الدارسين الكبار وتزيد من دافعيتهم نحو التعلم. أيضا تبنت الحكومة المصرية ثقافة التطوع لخدمة المجتمع لمن يرغب العمل كمعلمين أو معلمات في برامج محو الأمية، فمعا نستطيع، بهدف القضاء على بعض الفجوات الموجودة في هذا الملف. أيضا تشجيع كل أفراد المجتمع المصري غنيهم وفقيرهم كل يساهم بما يستطيع للتغلب على هذه المشكلة بعد إعادة تأهيلهم من خلال الدورات التدريبية التي تحرص الهيئة على إتمامها. أشكر حضراتكم على حسن الاستماع وأتمنى من الله التوفيق، وإذا كان لي من أن أقدم توصية لهذا المؤتمر العظيم الدولي المهم فيجب أن يكون الخضرنة والمحافظة على البيئة أحد المداخل الرئيسية لتعلم الكبار في مصر وجميع دول العالم. أشكر حضراتكم، شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you so much for those round of interventions. The speakers emphasized the need for sustainable financing for education. They emphasize about the need to widen the domestic base. I think that's very important. In the Education 2030 Framework for Action, it really emphasized raising domestic resources by widening the tax base through tax justice mechanisms. And this round of interventions we've heard really emphasize that. And this is the key to delivering youth and adult literacy that is within the right to education. This is a sustainable financing that is learner-centered, context-based, and one that will support the acquisition and use of not only reading, writing, and numeracy skills, but also functional skills that contribute towards the development of active citizenship, improved health and livelihoods, and gender equality is what we can capture from this round of questions. Now we're down to the last round of questions on data and research and evidence on literacy. Colleagues, improving policies, financing, and programs often requires comprehensive and reliable data on literacy. In the framework of SDGs, there is a dedicated SDG indicator, particularly indicator 4.6.1, which expects member states to measure and monitor the progress of functional literacy and numeracy skills of youth and adults. In addition, a diversity of research is needed to better understand literacy needs, practices, contexts, and demands of future society. I now would like to call on the Director of UNESCO Institute for Statistics to tell us, Director Silvia Montoya, could you please lead us to strategic information on the literacy statistics? If we focus on SDG indicator 4.6.1, what are the new developments on measuring and monitoring this indicator, and what are the remaining challenges? For this, Madam Silvia, you have 10 minutes actually for your intervention.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody. It's really a great opportunity and an honor to be with all of you. I think it's very important to have this discussion. I know that sometimes data is dry, it's difficult to actually to understand and to see what are the concepts that we're grasping, but at the end of the day, to have a good investment and to good policy making, data is then definitely something very important, and it's just a tool that will help to guide us and to support the ones that are in need of having this support in terms of their literacy in the different moments of life. So I would like to ask the colleagues there that if they can help, I have prepared a very short PowerPoint to share some thoughts with you, and also to try to convey and start by conveying a very simple a kind of good news, because sometimes we're really only hearing bad news. And I would like to start by this indicator about functional literacy and numeracy. And I just want to commensurate and to praise on all the international community led by one of our institutes, the Institute of Lifelong Learning, that has been leading for us a task force on this particular indicator, in trying to guide how to measure and how to actually to have new tools in trying to assess this indicator. But the first point, as always, is about the concept. We really needed to walk towards a shared conception of literacy and try to have those definitions about what are those levels, to try to grasp this continuous. It's very important to understand that we move along different levels, and those different levels, and trying to understand what those levels are, and try to understand what are the policies that are adequate to each of those levels, has been a very important development in the first part of our agenda, in trying to give a very critical conceptual definition to each of these levels, in trying to move for this learning to read, to this reading to learn concept, and this issue that and the conception that literacy involves this continuum of the learning measure at these different proficiency levels. And this is a very important conceptual agreement that we have found, and a very important kind of settling in what are those levels, and also try to identify from there what are the tools that are available. And if we can go to the next slide. It's very important to understand that this SDG agenda is a formative agenda. It was clear that at the beginning, our presidents called on us to try to have a framework of global indicators, try to invite us to develop the tools, to implement in each of the countries some kind of measurement according to the needs and to the possibilities. And for this reason, I would like to go, if we can actually transition, colleagues, please, to the next slide, to try to agree on the fact that the first snapshot tell us that the literacy skills are different within and across the countries. There are not issues only about inequality across countries, but are also within the countries. and the need to have a variety of tools that can target and capture all this heterogeneity and the variance that is across the population. And also to give to the countries the opportunity to choose what instruments are the best suit and the best tailored to that needs. And so in that sense, it has been the work that has been done in the last 5 to 7 years in trying to walk towards those definitions and trying to actually to walk towards the next step is to try to have these tools based on what it has been done and the availability of tools to measure. And if I want to actually to go to the next slide, we're going to have a first snapshot about what are the available instruments. And we have this program of the international assessment and adult competition that are led by the OECD, the PIAC, as they are well known. We have the steps and skill measurement that is actually conducted by the World Bank. And before this agenda has been implemented, the UNESCO, through the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, has actually built a literacy and assessment and monitoring program, the LAMP, that was basically focused on developing countries. And so these are the three tools that which we started this agenda, departing from a very important conception, that is that we need to have a direct assessment of the skills. It's important to note that it's relevant to have a self-assessment of adult population about the level of skills, but there is an agreement between the research community, and this is clear, that really we need to assess with the direct tool these kind of abilities in the population. So we have these three tools that are represented in the slide. The first one is the PIAC, that is capture well the middle to the high level of a skill, this right part of the distribution we saw in the first slide. We have the program of the STEP of the World Bank that is related to the scale of the PIAC as well, that covers literacy skill that are really not that much on that right part of the distribution, but is having, in some of the cases, not enough information to report for this indicator because of the sampling, but still is very useful as a tool for information for the policymaker, obviously. And the LAMP, that was an initiative, as I said, of UNESCO, was a comprehensive tool that looks more to the low, to the left part of the distribution, and is really suited and tailored to measure in the low and middle income countries. We started with these three developments during the development of the task force and the effort that has been led by the UIL, especially very intensively in the last year. We can see that despite all this effort and the three tools, if we can go to the next slide, we have serious issues of literacy data coverage as measured by direct assessment, not but self-reporting, by direct assessment, as it is the advice to try to have accurate information. We have in Asia Pacific 22 countries out of the 63. We have in Africa 4 countries out of the 54. We have in Latin America 7 countries out of 32. And we have in North America and Europe 31 countries out of 46. So we have gaps, and there is a need to fill those gaps, to have a good guidance of policy making, a good guidance on supporting to the population that are in need, but also a good guidance on investment and the fact of we really want to grant the right to have those basic skills in order to be able to fully function in life, as for all the reasons that have been very well flagged by our chair. So where is this data coming from? If we can go to the next slide. We have basically this data is coming from international assessment in a very low proportion in terms of the need to cover. We have national and international 13% of data is coming from this adaptation of a different assessment. And we have some countries that have been implementing their own national initiatives to try to have a direct measurement of the skill of the population. This is how the data that we have available is composed in terms of the availability for that group of countries that we are having some information and is possible to guide us and policy making. So this is a very important combination of facts that are leading to the next slide, and to this very nice initiative that actually has come and has been really very actively implemented by the colleagues at UIL, that is using some items and a good level and good quantity of items that are coming from the literacy assessment that the UIS has implemented before 2015. The UIS has actually built a tool that is composed by enough questions or items that are able to actually to measure for this indicator 461, the functional literacy and numeracy. And the UIL has taken this tool forward, and in terms of trying to build and to have this tool implemented in a way that is really very thoughtful in terms of implementing in terms of the tablet. And this tool is very important because assesses skills in reading, prose and documents, and numeracy. About the sample, aimed to measure as a sample of 15 and up is youth and adult population at their households, is able to provide to the countries a tool for policy making and a methodology that is actually able to track and to monitor over time, because this is about progress, it's about being sure that the policies are really aimed to achieve this target. And it's also able to guide and to assess when to fix, when to change a little bit on the policy making side in order to achieve those goals. What are the features of this tool and the adaptation of the mini LAM to this tablet environment? Is a multilingual tool. Questions could be added or removed should the country want to measure something different, something new is very important to have. It's flexible in terms of the devices and the low connectivity. It's based on the sound methodology that has been agreed, has been pilot, and has been actually proven as working in the round of the previous administration of the LAMP, and is offering this possibility to also to have information, because there is a background questionnaire that looks at the population, that allows to have information about different practices regarding literacy, about the qualifications of the population, and is allowing also as well to have some extra information that is allowing to have a sound policymaking.
Okay,
This is really a very nice tool, and thank you so much. Is my last slide is the next one.
Okay.
I would invite to actually to reach out to the colleagues at the UIL, but we have to always remember what are the high level goals that we have in measurement. The data is not data for the sake of having data. It's only with direct skill assessment and high quality data that we will be able to guide policy making, that we're going to compare across populations and over time. It's very important to keep this aspect in mind. And for that, we require methods and initiatives as the one that I have been actually sharing with you. And it's also at the end of the day to inform the policy and the program planning in terms of who needs help, how much help do they need, and what kind of help does each group need. These are very important questions to answer. Thank you so much, and thank you, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Madam Silvia, for such a substantive, excellent points offered. I would like to bring back our Honorable Deputy Education Minister from Canada to just quickly share with us how does Canada gather literacy data and how is the literacy data used for policy and program improvement. Madam and Honorable Deputy Education Minister, quick points, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Federal, provincial, territorial, and local governments here use data on literacy and numeracy proficiency to make evidence-informed decisions and to review their policy and programming in adult learning and education. Data is instrumental, particularly in our efforts to address the needs of underrepresented groups, and we try to bridge the gaps in access and successful outcomes for certain populations. Excuse me. For all of these purposes, Canada has gathered rich longitudinal insights from its participation in a series of international literacy-related assessments for many decades. For example, the International Adult Literacy Survey in 1994 and the International Adult Literacy and Skills Survey in 2003. Since 2012, we've been using the OECD's PIAC program that Silvia just mentioned. And again, the PIAC program measures literacy, numeracy, and problem solving and use of those skills among adults aged 16 to 65 years. In cycle 1 of PIAC in 2012, Canada was one of approximately 40 countries and subnational regions that participated along with all of Canada's provinces and territories. And in that year, we had over 27,000 participants. In addition to general population sample, Canada oversampled for specific population groups. For us, that included Indigenous populations off reserve, immigrants, youth, those aged 16 to 24, and official language populations living in minority settings. Oversampling provided rich information about the characteristics and skills of each of those groups. Like previous large-scale data collections, PIAC provided a rich evidence base for policy making, a better measure of the country's stock of skills, insights into whether education and training programs are focusing on the right competencies, and the capacity to compare skills across many countries around the world. PIAC's been valuable to federal, provincial, and territorial governments in policy making. The data has facilitated a better understanding of the performance of education and training systems, the extent and dimensions of lower levels of literacy skills, gaps between labor market outcomes and education and training outcomes, equity levels in access to education and intergenerational mobility, young people's transition from education to work, identification of at-risk populations, and links between key cognitive skills and variables such as demographics, educational background, health outcomes, etc. In some provinces and territories here, for instance, in Manitoba, they took a deeper dive into the data, sponsoring further research into data specific to their PIAC results and priorities. And furthermore, PIAC data has enabled governments to identify critical problems within the general population, as well as subgroups within the population that may be experiencing greater challenges. Canada is looking forward to the results of the second cycle of PIAC, given the important focus on adult competencies in the global effort toward lifelong learning. PIAC will continue to be instrumental for us to assess our efforts towards improving adult literacy and numeracy. On a final note, many provinces and territories across Canada, including Saskatchewan, Manitoba, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland and Labrador, have embarked on ambitious systems reviews, redesigns, and strategic developments in their adult learning and education models that place evidence-based decision-making at the foundation. We are collecting data on participant demographics, generating profiles that reflect our learners' needs, digging into the causes behind withdrawal rates, and conducting wide-ranging consultations with learners, stakeholders, and partners. We're also embedding data in designing our programs, in monitoring progress, and in measuring outputs and outcomes within policy, programming, governance, financing, quality assurance, as well as equity and inclusion imperatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Education Minister Donna Johnson. Those are very powerful points. And now for the last intervention for this last round of questions is to the Honorable Education Minister from Burkina Faso on what literacy assessment and measurement tools does Burkina Faso apply to gather data on literacy situations. Honorable Education Minister from Burkina Faso.
Merci beaucoup. D'abord, il faut dire une chose, c'est que nous sommes confrontés à deux enjeux majeurs pour la question donc de l'alphabétisme et de l'éducation. D'abord, l'alphabétisme, ou du moins l'analphabète, est considéré, c'est une insulte en fait dans certains pays, est un terme très péjoratif. Du coup, ça a créé un sentiment donc de tabou ou de retranchement pour celui en fait qui est considéré comme analphabète. Donc nous voulons d'abord sortir ce mot-là du bassin des mots péjoratifs, et parce que derrière ce mot, il y a des êtres humains qui souffrent d'une manière ou d'une autre, et donc il faut transformer les mentalités pour que l'analphabète ne soit plus perçu comme une insulte, mais qu'il soit perçu comme une personne qui suscite en fait le désir d'apprendre. Deuxième élément, c'est le concept de l'éducation. Chez nous, on n'éduque pas un adulte. On considère que l'adulte est déjà éduqué. Et dans la tradition et dans nos mentalités, il n'y a pas de marge en fait pour qu'un adulte ne soit pas éduqué. Ce qui rend difficile l'approche éducationnelle entre l'apprenant adulte et puis l'éducateur lui-même. Quant à la collecte de données, ça se fait de façon structurelle, d'abord au niveau du ministère de l'Éducation nationale, qui développe l'ensemble des programmes et les approches d'apprentissage, d'alphabétisation, mais auprès des adultes, à travers donc la direction des statistiques du ministère qui récolte les données sur les régions laboratoires que nous avons mises en place. Nous sommes partis en utilisant donc 3 langues nationales, le moré, le fulfulde et le gourmand-schéma, pour d'abord mettre une phase expérimentale et récolter les données et ensuite mesurer. Deuxième outil, il s'agit justement de l'enseignement supérieur qui va mettre en place l'ensemble des outils pédagogiques et accompagner justement en termes d'enchaînement et de mise en relais tout le travail qui a été déjà conçu au niveau du ministère de l'Éducation nationale pour ensuite les déverser dans une base de données communes qui seront exploitées par l'Institut national des statistiques afin de mesurer d'abord sur le plan quantitatif, mais aussi sur le plan qualitatif. Nous pensons développer aussi des indicateurs clés de performance, parce que le tout n'est pas de collecter les données, mais c'est aussi de les comparer par rapport à nos aspirations et par rapport aussi à nos attentes en termes d'objectifs, en termes de buts à atteindre. Et donc nous sommes en train vraiment de travailler autour de tout cela. Il faut savoir que l'alphabétisation au Burkina est portée intégralement par un financement national. D'abord, ça a commencé avec 10 millions de francs CFA. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes à hauteur de 35 millions de francs CFA. Et comme je dis, nous sommes en train de vouloir développer une action de capitalisation de financement, mais sur la base interne d'abord, par une volonté des acteurs économiques locaux à soutenir et à accompagner ces engagements-là. Ensuite, au-delà donc des statistiques et de la collecte de données, nous avons un problème aussi de stockage qui va nous permettre justement année après année de comparer à N+1 par rapport à N-1 l'évolution qu'il y a eu sur ces données-là. Et il faut savoir une chose, c'est que la question donc de l'alphabétisme au Burkina Faso porte sur plusieurs langues, notamment 60 langues. Nous cherchons un canal pour harmoniser justement la compréhension et le suivi en termes de compilation de données sur ces 60 langues-là. Mais pour commencer, pour un début, nous sommes partis sur 3 langues, sachant que le chantier est vaste, mais nous allons y arriver. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Honorable Minister. Well, distinguished delegates and fellow participants, we've heard an excellent panel of speakers who have offered us much inspiration to take forward to advance youth and adult literacy. We can certainly take a decisive action now, as literacy plays a key role in transforming education and one that will certainly help fulfill the vision set in the draft Marrakesh Framework for Action. You've all had a copy of the draft Marrakesh Framework for Action. Therefore, as part of the contribution of this panel session to our distinguished colleagues in the drafting committee, it is our sincere hope, taking off from this session, that there will be a strong commitment towards redoubling our efforts to implementing related literacy policies and meeting SDG 4.6 targets. We are also hopeful that a strong attention to informed and effective policies and programs that rest on robust data and information which convey a better understanding of learners' lives and and varied contexts. No? This can be drawn from a variety of already available resources from the work of academia, from NGOs and community-based organizations. No? There's also a need to be proactive and need for sustained efforts to put in place adult literacy policies and programs framed on expanded notions of literacy, and all this will require financing. Therefore, there is a need for stronger commitment to financing literacy more sustainably, especially through domestic resources, and of course, towards filling the funding gap to meet SDG 4 adult literacy targets and integrate skills training through the fulfillment of existing commitments related to official development aid. And last point, there has to be a stronger commitment to good quality literacy by putting in place and implementing policies for the professional development of the adult literacy sector, including teachers and trainers with full opportunities at all levels, national and local levels, to access this. And last point, a stronger commitment to bring in the voices of learners. Colleagues, with this, I'd like to offer our sincere thanks to our distinguished panel of speakers. It's been a real pleasure sharing this space with you, and I now would like to hand it over to our distinguished chair.
Thank you, Madam Helen, for moderating this session, and I would also like to thank the distinguished panelists for the presentation. Considering time, we have 3 countries for intervention, and so I would like to ask you to please keep it short and sweet and simple, so 2 minutes, the maximum. We'll start with Malawi. Honorable Dr. Patricia Kaliati, the Minister of Gender, Community Development and Social Welfare. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chairperson. The Chairperson, distinguished delegates, and all my seniors present this afternoon, I bring greetings from His Excellency Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, President of the Republic of Malawi. The President wishes us fruitful deliberations. Allow me also to thank His Majesty, the King, and the people of Morocco for the warm welcome accorded to us. The Chairperson, I feel greatly honored to be part of this important conference, and especially to be part of the launch of the 5th Global Report on Adult Learning and Education, from Berlin to Marrakesh, and also to contribute to the Marrakesh framework of action in my country. Adult learning education issues fall under the Department of Community Development in the Ministry of Gender, Community Development and Welfare, in which I am the Minister. The Chairperson, since the 60th International Conference on Adult Education held in Belém, in Brazil, Malawi has recorded limited success due to a number of challenges. Major challenges have been COVID-19, which disrupted adult learning activities, and inadequate resources for implementation of programs. The response to these challenges has been to strengthen coordination among stakeholders, implementing adult learning and education in Malawi through technical working groups and also coordination meetings. The Chairperson, in Malawi, according to the National Statistics Office 2020, literacy rate for men is 73%, and among women is 58.6%. These low levels are the main threats to human capital development in Malawi and account for poor living standards and the slow pace of development. Low levels of literacy account for low participation by individuals and communities in socioeconomic development programs. People who can read and write are easy to train, and they retain knowledge and information required for lifelong learning. There is need, therefore, to integrate literacy program in all other development initiatives to ensure success. Literacy is needed in nutrition, farming, entrepreneurship, health, hygiene and sanitation, climate change mitigation, environmental conservation, and also management. Gender programs, just to mention few. Literate people open up to more learning and positive behavior and decision-making, hence, indeed, the foundation for lifelong learning. The Chairperson and all my seniors, some of the ways the government of Malawi is striving to promote literacy in lifelong learning includes inclusion of adult literacy and education in 2063 Malawi Vision under enabler number 3 of human capital development, is supporting adult literacy education through its annual budget through my ministry, developed a national policy on literacy and adult education and the corresponding strategy plan, develop adult learning and education management information system to track progress in collaboration with DVVI we work with in Malawi. Reviewed adult literacy curriculum to align the adult learning and education program to formal primary curriculum in order to give adult learning an opportunity to continue with education beyond literacy classes. A diploma curriculum is in order. A diploma curriculum is being developed to improve the delivery of adult literacy programs. Established 3 community learning in collaboration with the Korea National Commission for UNESCO, which promote literacy and livelihood program among youth, persons with disability, the elderly people, and women. We use local language in literacy classes to attract learners to enroll. We introduced digital literacy following the COVID-19 crisis. The chairperson, I believe that government, development partners, and civil society need to collaborate to support literacy program with adequate resources and determination to eradicate illiteracy for us to achieve lifelong learning. A literacy program and livelihood activities have to be supported, and literacy as a human rights issue has to be prerequisite in all development initiatives. I thank you very much for your attention, and may God bless you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Patricia, Honorable Dr. Patricia. We'll move on to Mali. Madame Sila Fatoumata, Director of Education and National Languages.
Okay. Merci. Bonjour tout le monde. Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres ici présents, chers participants à cette 7e conférence de la CONFINTEA, au nom de Madame le ministre de l'Éducation nationale du Mali, Madame Sidibé Dédé Ousmane, qui devrait venir, mais à la dernière minute a eu un agenda très chargé, je remercie les autorités marocaines pour l'accueil et pour tout l'engagement en faveur de la lutte contre l'analphabétisme. Il me plaît de rappeler qu'au Mali, nous sommes vraiment victimes d'un certain nombre de fléaux, comme l'insécurité résiduelle, comme la pandémie de la Covid, comme tous les autres pays, et aussi le fléau des conflits politico-sociaux qui vraiment entravent les activités en cours en faveur de la lutte contre l'analphabétisme. Cependant, le Mali, malgré l'engagement des plus hautes autorités à travers la prise en compte dans le PRODEC 2, le PRODEC 2 c'est le programme décennal de l'éducation et de l'emploi. Le PRODEC 2 est aussi la mise en place d'un programme vigoureux de lutte contre l'analphabétisme. Notre pays s'est engagé à lutter contre ce fléau et à trouver vraiment des réponses aux questions qui se posent à travers la création de centres d'apprentissage féminin pour les filles déscolarisées ou non scolarisées précoces, à travers la création de centres d'éducation pour le développement et à travers aussi un centre d'éducation pour l'intégration. Donc, notre pays, à l'instar des autres pays ici présents, est vraiment engagé à lutter contre l'analphabétisme. Aussi, nous allons dire qu'il y a aussi, nous osons espérer que cette rencontre nous offrira l'opportunité d'évaluer les avancées dans le domaine spécifique de la lutte contre l'analphabétisme, de nous permettre aussi de voir les défis et les opportunités ainsi que les projections pour une meilleure prise en charge de la thématique dans nos systèmes éducatifs. Aussi, il me plaît aussi de dire que pour transcender ces nombreux problèmes, je m'en veux de ne point saluer l'engagement de l'UNESCO auprès de la République du Mali, surtout auprès du département de l'éducation, car l'UNESCO est le chef de file des PTF qui travaillent avec notre département. Aussi, je dirais que nous nous inscrivons aussi dans les propositions faites par Sa Majesté le roi Mohamed V dans ce message introductif, à savoir la création d'une commission interministérielle post-CONFINTEA VII, et aussi la création d'un institut africain pour l'apprentissage tout au long de la vie. Je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Thank you very much, Madame Sila, for that inspirational message there. I would like to call now Dr. Lavitumi from Finland.
Madam Chair, honorable panelists, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the possibility to join the discussion and by sharing Finland's latest experience and developments among literacy. The world is in a tremendous change. For example, mis, dis, and mal information try to affect our minds. The reading of the texts is transforming to the listening of the books. So there are tremendous changes. Due to these challenges, our aim in Finland is that every citizen updates continuously his or her literacy skills. In the latest survey by Finland's Reading Center, there are 3 interesting results. Finland has been one of the most literate countries globally, but today 6 in 10 Finnish people think that they do not read anymore enough. Secondly, as many as 71% of adults report that an inability to concentrate in reading is the reason for the lack of reading. That is, of course, due to the mobile phones and, for example, social media. Moreover, 63% of the parents of small children feel that they do not spend enough time reading to their children. The adult literacy has effect on the whole generation of the new leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, to tackle these challenges, Finland has launched a new literacy strategy. This strategy covers the whole education system, but also other sectors of the society. For example, publishers, businesses, libraries, foundations, and associations. And actually, the ecosystem of the literacy is extremely wide. The literacy affects all actors in the society. Literacy skills in the new strategy consist of all traditional reading and writing skills, but also visual data as well as media literacy skills. The vision is the society in which the literacy skills are acknowledged in all of the sectors and in which everyone will have support and empowerment for these literacy skills throughout the lifetime. The vision year is 2030, and for the implementation of the strategy, there are 3 lines. First, to create and strengthen the structures of the literacy work. Second, to strengthen the multiliteracy. And third, to inspire everyone to read and develop the multiliteracy skills. And to conclude, the strategy calls all actors in the society to join the implementation. Thus, also, adult education and learning sector will have a strong role in the implementation of the strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lavitumi. I would like to sincerely thank our distinguished panelists and excellencies, ministers, distinguished delegates, fellow participants. We've come to the end of our session number 3.